Previously, we covered the core foundations. Now in part 5, we tackle is Mars actually possible? The real story of getting humans. There, episode 5. Will humans ever live on Mars permanently? Last episode, we looked at what the journey to Mars would actually do to the human body, and what it would take to arrive in a state to do anything useful. Today, we go further. Because getting there is only the beginning. A flags and footprints mission is one thing. A permanent civilization is another thing entirely. So the question this episode is asking is, could humans ever live on Mars permanently? Not visit, not survive for 2 years and come home, actually stay. Section 1. The difference between a mission and a settlement that every crewed Mars mission discussed so far, by NASA, by private programs, by international partners, has been framed around a stay of roughly 18 months to 2 years. You arrive, you work, you leave on the next launch window. That's a mission. It's extraordinary, but it's temporary by design. A settlement is structurally different. It means people who don't come back, children born there eventually. Institutions, laws, supply chains, and medicine that don't depend on a signal arriving from Earth 20 minutes after you sent it. That 20-minute communication delay isn't just inconvenient. It means no real-time medical consultation, no immediate emergency guidance from mission control. Every decision made on the surface has to be made by the people on the surface with whatever knowledge and equipment they brought with them. NASA's CHAPEA program, the Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog, is running year-long surface simulations here on Earth specifically to study this. The goal is to understand how isolated crews manage resource constraints, health challenges, and the psychological weight of genuine remoteness. As of 2026, NASA has confirmed planning for further analog missions of this type. They're not doing it out of curiosity. They're doing it because we genuinely don't yet have enough data on what sustained surface living demands. Section 2. The closed loop problem. For a settlement to be permanent, it can't be a resupply dependency forever. Earth and Mars align for launch windows roughly every 26 months. Miss one, and you wait 2 more years. In the early phases, a settlement would be critically dependent on those windows for food, spare parts, medical supplies, and crew rotation. Breaking that dependency is the central engineering challenge of permanence. It requires what's called a closed-loop life support system, one that cycles water, recycles air, grows food, and manages waste internally with minimal loss. Partial versions of this exist on the International Space Station, but partial isn't enough. On Mars, you'd need something close to complete closure, sustained indefinitely, under conditions that include radiation, dust storms, and soil chemistry that is actively hostile to unprotected biology. That soil chemistry is worth pausing on. Martian regolith contains perchlorates, oxidizing compounds that are toxic to plants and humans at concentration. Growing food on Mars isn't as simple as bringing seeds. You'd need either processed, decontaminated growing media or entirely enclosed hydroponic systems. Both are achievable in principle. Neither is trivial at the scale a settlement requires. NASA's MOXIE experiment, which flew on the Perseverance rover, demonstrated that oxygen can be extracted from the Martian atmosphere by processing carbon dioxide. That's a real, demonstrated capability, not theoretical. It's a genuine foundation. Scaling it to breathable habitat air for dozens of people, sustainably, is a different order of problem entirely. Section 3. Governance, economics, and who decides. Here's something that rarely comes up in the technical briefings. If humans are living permanently on Mars, under what legal framework do they exist? The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 states that no nation can claim sovereignty over celestial bodies. That's the existing international position. But it says nothing definitive about private entities, corporate structures or communities of people who've no intention of returning to any nation's jurisdiction. A permanent Mars settlement would eventually need governance, rules about resource use, conflict resolution, medical authority, and basic rights. Nobody has agreed on what that looks like. It's not a small detail. The economics are equally unresolved. Early settlements would be extraordinarily expensive to maintain and would produce nothing of economic value that couldn't be obtained more cheaply elsewhere. The long-term argument for Mars usually rests on resource extraction, scientific return, or the insurance policy logic of a second location for humanity. Those are legitimate arguments, but they operate on timescales of decades to centuries, not budget cycles. Section 4. What permanence actually requires, so what would actually have to be true for Mars permanence to work? Reliable, near-complete, closed-loop life support. Medical capability that doesn't depend on Earth guidance. Food production that scales with population. Governance structures the people living there genuinely accept. And a transition point, probably generational, where the settlement stops being an outpost and starts being a community that reproduces, trains, and sustains itself. None of that is physically impossible. None of it is imminent either. The honest read of where we are in 2026 is this. The foundational science is being done, the analog research is ongoing, and the engineering pathways exist on paper. What we don't yet have is the sustained political will, the institutional frameworks, or the technology at the required scale. A permanent human presence on Mars is, as best we can tell, possible in principle. It's a decades-long systems challenge, not a launch milestone. And the gap between the first boot print and the first self-sustaining community is considerably wider than most public conversations acknowledge. That's where this series lands. Not with certainty, not with despair, but with a clear picture of what's real, what's hard, and what still needs to be built. Next episode, we step back even further and ask whether the entire Mars program, as it currently exists, is actually asking the right questions. If this series has been useful, subscribing is the best way to catch what's next. No noise, just the actual story. That is part 5 of Is Mars Actually Possible? The real story of getting humans there. In part 6, we explore the next key question. Subscribe so you do not miss it.